I'm Spencer Furby, the pulpit minister of the Valley View Church of Christ in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I'm so grateful that you're interested in preaching, whether as an occasional task or in your life's vocation. I've been preaching for almost 25 years, and I want to share with you the three things that are always the hardest part of sermon preparation. This is true when you first start out and try to get the hang of it. This is true if you want to hang in there and master it. You will struggle with these areas. If you get to a point where your preaching is really successful, I guarantee you it's because you have put effort into these three spots. I'll represent each one of these difficulties with a question. The first one is this: what am I going to preach on? This is a question of topic or text, and it sounds so elementary, doesn't it? For the person who doesn't preach but is considering it, it seems so simple. Just preach what's on your heart. What do you feel strongly about? Preach on it. What is everybody consumed about right now? Preach on it. Let the Spirit just move you. Well, you'll find when you actually get into preaching that the human heart does not have an endless supply of compelling thoughts. After you cover the 4 or 5 things that dominate your mind at a particular time, you're kind of out of soap. You'll see what people are feeling strongly about on social media. You'll address that. But then what? You'll also begin to realize that many things that should be preached on in the regular diet for Christians are not things that you feel so passionate about. Some things aren't sexy. Some things aren't exciting. Some things are just necessary. What this is really about is confidence. You want to be confident that what you say is true and that it matters. It's backed by authority. It's not just entertaining. It's not just interesting. You'll never be ashamed of it. God's people need truth, God's truth. It isn't always fun or exciting or hot. Paul told the Ephesian elders in Acts 20, he did not hesitate while there to preach the whole counsel of God. And I guarantee you, some of it didn't seem all that obviously relevant or terribly compelling, but they needed it. If you watch American Idol or shows like that very much, you'll invariably hear of the importance of song selection. Some people fail simply because they chose a song that didn't fit right. The selection for the church's pulpit is critical. Let me give a huge piece of advice. Expository series preaching is the way to go. When you let Scripture determine your content, you can be sure it always fits. Select a book, let the passage of that book, the passages as you go along, direct your topics and treatments. You can still do topical passages when the need arises, but when you're in those long periods when a compelling thought is hard to come by, let God's revelations guide you. What am I going to preach on is something that can so paralyze you that Wednesday comes, you still have no idea, and it's a terribly eerie feeling. Second difficult area is application. Question is, what do I want to convey to my hearers from this text? Notice I did not say, what did this passage mean to the readers originally? That's a crucial question that absolutely must be worked through. But there are many things that will help you with that. There's a lot of work, but it's a different work from this question. When you work to determine what the text meant to the readers, there is still a translation issue as to what it means for hearers today. This translation issue involves at least 2 challenges. What does this mean for people today? And what part of this meaning am I going to treat this week? You must translate, but you cannot translate everything. There are choices you'll make, and each one of the choices creates turmoil in you. You'll wrestle with this. This is hard, but this is where the reward for a great sermon is found. Many preachers are intimidated by this different work, and the sermons become history lessons or archaeological digs as they stay safely in the world of the original audience, not risking the effort to update the translation. A shekel is no longer a shekel, so you need to know what a shekel was so you can be able to say what a shekel is. For true translation to occur, meaning must be converted to contemporary terms, so you must learn to be bilingual. The application is the hardest process because while you have many commentaries to help share in the discovery of what the text meant, You are the one responsible for finding out what it means to the people who live in the pews in front of you. This is not study of a text. This is study of a context. In the book of Nehemiah, Ezra read the law to a great assembly of people. And in chapter 8, verse 8, it says, they read from the book, from the law of God clearly, and they gave the sense so the people understood the reading. Between words in the book and the sense that allowed understanding stood a preacher. He read the text, and they gave the sense. You need to study the text first. You need to identify the sense, and you need to proclaim that sense to the people who live where you do. To preach the text, that's reading. To apply that is sense, and we need both. You must be Ezra, the preacher. Study that text, but you're not done until you give the sense of the text to your context, and that requires deep thinking, work. And the third difficult area, it's form. The question is, how can I convey the message in a way that can be grasped and utilized? All sermons, I guess, are heard, but not all sermons are grasped. And your goal for your message is to be grasped and used. You cannot say everything you want to say. You can't even say all the best things that thrilled you while you studied the text. You have to cut, and you have to cut, and you have to cut, and you have to shape, and you have to shape, and you have to shape. Let me put it this way. If you're dying of thirst across a field, you don't just need water. You need water in a medium that's accessible. If I see you thirsty and I spray water from a hose way up in the air and it comes down near you, it won't do you much good. It's water, but it won't do you any good. If I dump a bucket of water on you, it will do little good. And even if I cup water in my hand and bring it out to you, it will be of minimal use. But if I get a bottle and I fill it with water and I bring it to you, not only do you have water, but you have water brought to you in a way that you can use it. It will get to where it needs to go to sustain you. Your sermon form is a bottle. It's how you present the material that you've prepared in a structure that the minds of your hearers can understand and take in and use. You know how some things really seem complicated and you really struggle to understand them, and then someone comes along with this very easy way to make you understand. And most likely when that happens, you say, "Oh, I see what you're saying. I see." The goal of structure is to make it possible for your hearers to see what the text is saying. It is hard work, and many people leave this to the end and run out of time and go without it. That's costly. A sermon becomes a random series of good insights that the hearer has no way of putting together for a coherent use. It is spilled all over, and it did not refresh the hearer. A good sermon is one that applies the text and offers the application in a way that the hearer grasps it, stores it, and uses it to sustain spiritual life. When sermons fail, they most often fail for one of these three reasons. When sermons hit the mark, they hit the mark because the preacher has put time and effort into these three things. Forsake them at great risk. Wrestle with them, and you'll come out stronger, and so will your hearer.